Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss the new stories we share. Let's begin. She knocked on my gate on the coldest evening of the year, her tiny fist tapping against the iron bars like it was the last bit of strength she had left. I remember freezing mid-step, one hand still on the railing of the veranda, because something in that fragile sound didn't feel like a stranger asking for help. It felt like a plea meant for me. I walked down slowly, unsure whether I was imagining the trembling shape pressed against the gate. The lights from the foyer spilled across the gravel, and in that glow I saw a girl no older than 12 or 13, cheeks hollowed, eyes wide with the sharp panic of hunger. Her coat was soaked, clinging to her like a heavy shadow. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. "Sir, do you have warm soup?" The way her voice broke on the word, warm, hit me deeper than I expected. I had heard pleas before, donations, charity requests, desperate pitches from people who saw only the number attached to my name. But this wasn't that. This was survival scraped down to its last thread. I felt something twist inside me, something I didn't like to acknowledge, an old memory of my own childhood hunger, the nights I pretended I wasn't starving so my mother could eat the little we had. I hadn't visited those memories in years. Wealth has a way of building walls around uncomfortable truths, but her eyes cut through them like they weren't even there. "I have soup," I said, quietly, my voice sounding unfamiliar, almost hesitant. "Come in, you'll freeze out here." But she stepped back, shaking her head hard. "I can't, I just need the soup. I'm not allowed to go in houses," he said so. "Who said that?" She didn't answer. Her gaze darted over her shoulder, toward the dark road behind her as if expecting someone to emerge from it. Something cold slid down my spine. I opened the gate anyway and crouched so I was closer to her level. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Lena." "All right, Lena," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me get you something warm. You don't need to be afraid." But the way she flinched at the word afraid told me she already was far more than she should have been. I told her to wait a moment and hurried toward the house. But halfway to the door, something made me stop and glance back. She was gripping the bars of the gate, her knuckles bone-white, her eyes fixed on the road like she was listening for footsteps I couldn't hear. It wasn't just fear, it was dread. And in that moment, with the wind howling across the estate and the sky bruised with storm clouds, I felt a strange certainty settle over me. Whatever had driven her to my gate wasn't simple hunger. Someone had hurt this girl, and whoever he was, Lena was terrified he might find her. That realization tightened around my chest until breathing felt like effort. I couldn't leave her standing there, trembling and alone, waiting for a danger she refused to name. So I made a promise to myself right then. Whatever her story was, I would not let her face it alone. I hurried back with a steaming bowl between my hands, the heat rising into the cold air like a fragile offering. But when I reached the gate again, Lena hadn't moved an inch. She stood as still as a statue, eyes locked on the empty road. Only when I said her name did she blink, as if waking from some terrible dream. "I brought the soup," I murmured. "Careful, it's hot." Her hands shook as she took the bowl. "Thank you," she whispered, but the words were so thin they nearly broke apart before reaching me. She lifted the spoon to her lips, and the moment the warmth touched her tongue, her whole body softened, like she hadn't tasted real food in days, maybe weeks. She tried to eat slowly at first, probably out of habit, probably from being scolded for wanting too much. But the hunger took over, and soon tears were sliding down her cheeks, dripping onto her frayed sleeves. I leaned against the gate, trying to give her space, though every slurp sounded like a small heartbreak echoing in the cold. "When's the last time you ate?" I asked gently. She paused, spoon midair, and swallowed. "I don't remember," she said. Then, almost too quietly to hear, "He doesn't like when we eat without earning it." There it was again, that shadow of a man she wouldn't name. I tried not to let my anger show, but something must have flickered across my face because she stiffened immediately. "I didn't say anything," she blurted, clutching the bowl like she expected me to snatch it. "It's all right," I said quickly. "You're safe here, Lena. No one's going to hurt you." "You don't understand," she whispered. "He always finds out, always." Her gaze drifted to the mansion behind me, its windows glowing gold against the dark sky. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Most days," I said. "Sometimes the staff stays late, but tonight it's just me." I watched her weigh that answer, watched her shoulders tense like she was making calculations about escape routes and risks. "No family?" she pressed. I hesitated. "Not anymore." She didn't ask further, but something in her expression softened, like maybe she recognized the loneliness in my voice. Funny how a child could do that without even trying. The wind cut through the trees, and she wrapped her arms around herself. Her clothes were soaked to the bone, and every shiver sent a tremor through her small frame. "You can come inside," I said again, "just for a little while to warm up." She bit her lip torn. "He told us rich people are dangerous," she whispered. "Do I seem dangerous to you?" She studied me with those haunted eyes, searching, measuring, trying to figure out if kindness had a cost attached. Finally, she shook her head. "No, you seem sad." The honesty of that struck harder than I expected. Maybe I am, I admitted. Another gust of wind hit us, harsher this time, and Lena winced. I couldn't stand to see her trembling any longer. Lena, I said softly, you don't have to trust me completely. Just trust that I won't let anything happen to you tonight. She looked down at her empty bowl, then up at me again, her voice cracked. Can I warm up just for a minute? Just 1 minute, please. I nodded and opened the gate wider, but the moment she stepped through, branch snapped somewhere beyond the trees, loud, sharp, deliberate. Lena froze, and the terror that washed over her face told me the night was far from safe. The crack of that branch echoed through the estate like a warning shot, slicing through the cold air. Lena's fingers clutched the fabric of my coat before I even realized she'd moved. Her body went rigid against my side, breath caught in her throat. It's him, she whispered. He followed me. I scanned the dark tree line, my pulse ticking faster. Nothing moved, not yet, but the silence felt loaded, waiting. Come on, I said quietly. Inside. She didn't argue this time. I guided her quickly across the gravel path and into the house, shutting the door behind us with a force that made the frame tremble. The foyer lights wrapped us in warmth, but Lena stayed near the door, eyes glued to the frosted glass panels as though expecting a shadow to appear. You're safe, I told her. He can't get in here. You don't know him, she said, backing away from the door but never turning her back to it. He said if any of us ran, he'd make sure we never ran again. The words scraped out of her like they hurt. I felt something ugly rise in my chest, fury, old and heavy. Fury I hadn't felt since the days when someone else had held power over my mother and me, when we'd lived in a cramped apartment controlled by a landlord who treated us like we were disposable. I thought I left that world behind. Turns out pieces of it remained buried inside me. Lena, I said, trying to steady my voice, who is he, and what does he want from you? She hesitated, biting her chapped lip until it turned white. He takes in kids, says he's giving us a home, but it's not a home, it's... She trailed off, trembling. I crouched down so she didn't have to look up at me. It's what? It's a place where you work all day, cleaning, carrying heavy boxes, doing whatever he says, and if you don't, he locks you in the shed. Her eyes glistened. No food, no blankets, just dark. My stomach twisted. Has he hurt you? She looked away. That was answer enough. I took a slow breath, fighting the impulse to march into those woods and find the man myself. You're not going back there, I said. Yes, I am, she murmured. He always drags us back. Her certainty felt like a knife. I wanted to promise her everything, safety, justice, comfort, but promises mean nothing to a child who's only ever known broken ones. A soft chime echoed through the house. The motion sensors lining the gates had detected something outside. Lena's breath hitched. He found us, she whispered. I put a hand gently on her shoulder. Stay behind me. I walked to the security console in the foyer and pulled up the camera feed. At first, there was only the blurry snow reflecting the floodlights, but then a shape came into view. A man, tall, hood pulled low, standing just beyond the gate, not moving, just watching the house like he owned the night. Lena's voice cracked behind me. That's him. The man lifted his head just enough for the camera to catch the angle of his jaw, the glint of his gaze. And in that frozen stare, cold and deliberate, I saw the truth. He hadn't followed her by accident. He'd hunted her. And now he'd found where she ran. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The image on the screen held us captive. His stillness, his patience, the dark confidence of a man who believed no door could keep him out. I felt Lena inch closer, drawn by fear more than curiosity. Her small hand brushed the back of my coat, barely touching, as though she needed contact to remind herself she wasn't alone. He won't leave, she whispered. He waits until it's dark enough, then he tries things. I turned from the screen and knelt beside her. Lena, he's not getting through that gate, and he's not taking you back. You don't understand what he does when people say no, she murmured. He knows how to make you wish you listened. The tremor in her voice scraped at something raw inside me. Lena, has he hurt other kids? She nodded, eyes glassy. A boy named Aaron tried to run last year. He didn't come back the same. He didn't talk anymore. He just stared at the wall. My jaw tightened. Rage like that carries heat, but what I felt was cold, steady, controlled, a kind of sharpened clarity that surprised me. You're safe now, I said quietly. I'll handle him. You can't fight him, she pleaded. He has friends, he has places he hides kids. Nobody stops him. Someone will. She blinked as though the idea itself was foreign. Another chime sounded, another movement detected outside. I guided Lena into the living room, away from the front door. The fireplace flickered, casting gold across her face. She looked so small, standing there with her wet hair clinging to her cheeks, her shoulders hunched like she was expecting the world to hit her again. I grabbed a blanket from the couch and wrapped it carefully around her. She flinched at first, probably out of habit, but then relaxed into the warmth. You're shaking, I said. I always shake, she murmured. When I'm cold or scared. Which is it now? Both. She looked around the room, her gaze catching on a framed photograph by the mantel, me with my mother, taken years before she passed. I'd forgotten it was there. That's her? Lena asked. I swallowed. Yeah, that's her. You look different, softer. I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath instead. She brought that out of me. Do you miss her? Every day. Lena's eyes lingered on the photo. I used to have someone, she said softly. My aunt, she was kind, but she got sick and he said he'd take care of me while she was in the hospital. Her throat tightened. She never got me back. That hit harder than she could know. Lena, I promise you, whatever he told you, whatever he made you believe, none of this is your fault. Before she could answer, a loud metallic clang vibrated through the house. Lena startled violently, clutching the blanket. I rushed to the foyer, checking the camera again. The man had moved closer to the gate, gripping the bars with both hands, rattling them like a warning. Snow swirled around him, but he didn't shiver. He just stared into the lens with a slow, chilling smile. He was taunting me. I lowered my voice so Lena wouldn't hear the anger seeping into it. You picked the wrong house, I muttered. But when I turned back toward the living room, Lena was no longer standing by the fireplace. The blanket lay crumpled on the floor, and the sliding door to the back garden was half open. The cold rushed in through the half-open sliding door, a thin ribbon of winter air brushing against my face as I stepped toward it. The garden lights glowed faintly across the snow, casting long shadows from the hedges and the stone path. Lena was nowhere in sight. My breath tightened. She must have slipped out the moment I turned my back, fear driving her, instinct taking over. I knew that kind of panic. When you've lived under someone's control long enough, safety feels dangerous and running feels like the only thing you can command. Lena, I called softly into the night, no answer. I stepped outside, the snow crunching beneath me, and scanned the yard. For a moment I saw nothing but the restless sway of bare branches, then movement. A small shape crouched behind the old oak tree near the fence, trembling. I approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. Lena, why did you come out here? She kept her eyes fixed on the ground. I heard him, she whispered. On the side of the house, he always goes around the back when he gets angry. I crouched beside her and she flinched when the snow shifted. I'm not going to let him touch you, I said gently. You don't know what he does, she repeated, her voice cracking. If he sees me here at your house, he'll say I corrupted you. He'll say I did something bad. Her breathing hitched. He punishes kids who make rich people notice them. That sentence made my stomach clench, the twisted logic of an abuser, poisoning every instinct a child has, turning kindness into danger. Lena, I said, look at me. She hesitated, then lifted her eyes. You didn't do anything wrong, not tonight, not ever, and you're not going back to him. She shook her head, tears spilling. He always wins. Not this time. A sudden crash split the air, the sound of metal scraping against metal. Lena jolted, gripping my coat. I stood, scanning the fence line. Through the gaps of the hedges, I caught a glimpse of movement near the side gate. He'd left the front and made his way around, exactly like she'd said. A dark silhouette testing the latch, pushing, fiddling with something. I couldn't tell what, but the intent was clear. He wasn't leaving without her. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hands trembling with anger more than fear, and dialed emergency services. While the ring buzzed against my ear, Lena pressed herself against my leg, trying to make herself invisible. A dispatcher answered, and I kept my voice low. There's a man attempting to breach my property. He's been stalking a child who came to me for help. I need officers here now. They took my address, assured me help was on the way, but even as I hung up, I knew minutes could feel like hours when danger breathes this close. Come with me, I told Lena. We're moving inside. We stay together. She nodded weakly, and I took her hand, small, freezing, fragile, and guided her back through the sliding door, locking it behind us. We were only steps into the kitchen when a sudden pounding echoed from the opposite side of the house. Not polite knocking, not even angry knocking. This was a demand, a threat wrapped in fists. Open this door, a voice roared, muffled by distance but unmistakably male. She belongs to me. Lena stumbled back, shaking uncontrollably. Her eyes pleaded with me, begging for something she didn't know how to ask. I stepped between her and the sound, my own pulse steadying in a way I couldn't explain. No more running, no more hiding, no more letting fear decide anything. I would face him for her, and for the part of myself that once needed someone to fight back. More pounding. Louder. Give her to me. I placed a hand on Lena's shoulder just long enough for her to feel the truth in my voice. You're not his anymore. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing closer. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.